Oh yeah, 25 episodes in, we're going for a supersized episode.
Eli Roth is one of those horror directors that you can either get into or you can't.
His first film, Cabin Fever, was an unfocused mess, but highly entertaining with a ton of character. So, when his next film, Hostel, was announced, people were intrigued to see what he could muster up after cutting his teeth in his debut. The story goes, Roth was swimming in Quentin Tarantino's pool when he remembered while he was browsing the dark web that he discovered a website for a Thai murder vacation, where you could kill someone for 10 grand. He stated the website would show videos of people walking into a room and shooting someone in the head, and he had no clue if it was fake or real.
Shit, I don't even know, like, I can't even tell you that, like, you know, like, fighting, I don't know, like, never know, you know, like.
Hostel follows three backpackers as they make their way through Europe and end up in Slovakia. They stay at the titular hostel, and one by one end up mysteriously disappearing. It's eventually revealed that they're being kidnapped for an underground snuff service called Elite Hunting that lets people pay to kill a human being. Different races and services call for different prices, and so on.
One of the most underrated aspects I find with the film is its quiet, hopeless atmosphere.
What?
She said you met another girl.
Where are my friends?
The towns these guys go to are so twisted and dingy, you don't feel safe for them at any point, and it's a rational fear. I've been to other countries and felt uneasy in similar situations. When I was in Madrid, I had a great time, but I went out at night and every second street someone called out to offer you a free bar for an hour or something else to entice you in. One night the police took my passport and said I'd have to pay to get it back. How shady is that?
Don't trust the police, no justice, no peace. They got me face down in the middle of the street.
Whenever you're in the Elite Hunting cellars, it's deathly quiet, and all you hear is the torturous sounds ringing out in echo in these stone chambers. It's really chilling.
People have a really bad take on this film because it gives a negative view of the Eastern Bloc, specifically Slovakia and the Czech Republic. I've never understood this argument. 1. These are party boys who seek out sleazy establishments. It's not supposed to be a vision of the countries as a whole, merely the dingy places they find in the cheap rough areas every city has. And 2, horror films are set everywhere. They could be in any country, it just happens to be set in these ones. It's a touchy subject, but personally, I'm all for setting a horror movie in a specific country, so long as it's utilised well, and I feel here it is. Eli Roth actually had a very good counter-argument to these complaints, saying horror films are set all over the world and barely has any impact. Look at the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Those films paint a very poor picture of Texas, yet people still go there. Groups of young, single men like this don't go for the culture. They go to have a good time getting drunk and doing stuff that's legal there that isn't elsewhere. Unfortunately, these types of people don't make for very good protagonists.
Oh, God, I hope bestiality is legal in Amsterdam because that girl's a fucking hog.
Boy.
They're extremely immature, obnoxious, and with the worst sex-crazed view of women you can imagine. All common criticisms of Eli Roth characters. They come across as over-the-top cliches of what young people abroad are like, and it hurts the rest of the film, as you don't feel as attached to them when all the torturing begins. The cast all do a formidable job with the material they're given, but it's just bad luck they got saddled with this writing.
Hey, man, I shaved my ass just for you, man. My wife can boss too.
Can we watch something else? It's about to get really good. It's about to get really good. Trust me.
People like to label this as the birth of torture porn films or Gorno, but I don't think that's accurate. That genre has been around for a long time. Wolf Creek and The Devil's Rejects were both released the year before Hostel, and Saw was already working on its third entry. Then you have stuff like the Guinea Pig series, which barely has any story to it beyond simply watching people get tortured to death, and that was way back in the 80s. Ichi the Killer came out in 2001, 4 years before Hostel, and Takashi Miike's films are filled with this shit. I think a more accurate description would be that it was one of the first movies that came out to gain massive mainstream exposure, that began a fad of Western horror films featuring torture and gore in the mid to late 2000s. And even then, you could argue that Saw is a better fit for that description. But getting back to the film at hand, when things do start going downwards for our trio is when the film really gets good. This is where your eyes get wide and your knees get brought to your chest. You're watching these poor people in a cold wet room surrounded by rust covered nasty tools, and the suspense is palpable. The film does a great job keeping you on edge throughout these moments.
It's fucking intense. When you hear that chainsaw rev up, you know it's no joke.
The film clearly shows it has no intentions of holding back, so you're just sitting there with only two options. Either the dude is gonna die or some miracle will happen. It's riveting and the best aspect of the film. The special effects are also gruesomely great, with it all being practical and real looking. Mixed with the delicious sound design, you feel every injury these people go through in vivid detail. If you're a gorehound or someone who admires great practical effects, then you'll absolutely love this film.
I choose violence.
Elite Hunting isn't just your average group of torturous killers. They do really well, showcasing that this is a nightmarish fantasy for these sick bastards. For instance, there's a doctor who can't perform surgery anymore, so this is his outlet to do it. It's a scary thought. A large underground playground for the mega rich that allows them to live out their darkest fantasies. For all we know, it could be real.
Shit, I mean, like, for 50 grand, she better be worth it, you know what I mean? But it's supposed to be real, it's supposed to be a real rush, right? It's like they told me, it's like a real fucking rush, right?
Hostel is let down by its characters, but it makes up for it with a thick veil of despair, tension-filled torture scenes, and a frighteningly realistic concept to imagine yourself in.
It might be too extreme and trashy for some people, but if it sounds like your thing, this is definitely a trip worth taking.
Close your eyes.
Hostel Part 2 seemed like a cash grab, but to a horror fan, you could see a lot of potential with this series.
In number 1, we really only got glimpses of the acts being performed by the psychos in the Elite Hunting Underground. But the main guy was using it as an avenue to perform his passion. He did surgery that he had been banned from doing. That opened up a bunch of possibilities for what other creative killers could be lurking in the depths of this dark web service. However, this film got ravaged before release. I swear, there was almost no marketing for this film before it was released. I used to scour the web for any information on it and usually came up short. The movie was banned from being shown in many countries due to its graphic content, and still is in some cases. Even the House of Commons actually cited that owning stills from the film could lead to a charge for extreme pornography. What? This is just ridiculous.
Don't touch my stuff!
It never stood a chance, and it grossed pretty low. But is it really just 90 minutes of raw, unneeded violence? Not really.
The film actually has a great opening. It follows Paxton from the previous film immediately picking up after his escape from Elite Hunting. He has to tell his tale to the police while suffering from PTSD, and is paranoid that the group will be coming for him. It's creepy, sinister, and gets you instantly back in the right mood for this kind of movie. The rest of the film follows a group of young girls backpacking through Slovakia.
It's the same basic setup as the first. One by one, they're lured into the clutches of Elite Hunting to become some victim of a rich asshole.
The characters are a massive improvement for the most part, but this one girl really gets on your nerves. Her friend seems so nice and is suffering from depression, and she just antagonizes her constantly. It's so mean-spirited.
Why is it so mean?
The main hero is a vast improvement though, being likeable and fiercely intelligent. They're not amazing, but they get the job done, and we don't want to see them die. Everyone has more character. Even this dude in their hostel stuck in my mind after the credits rolled.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
In part 2, we focus much more on Elite Hunting themselves. And at the same time as the girls, we're watching a client go through his reluctant journey through the process, going from his specific requests all the way up to actually killing someone. It adds an interesting new dynamic, as up till now we've basically just watched rich assholes who revel in glee at killing people, but this guy gets it bought for him as a present. We see how they operate, how massive an organisation they truly are, and their presence is felt throughout the film. They're a genuinely scary force to be reckoned with in this film, and it was really absorbing to me seeing how they actually worked. The movie also throws a bunch of twists in its finale to keep you on your toes. I was pleasantly surprised by just how different it is to the first film.
Someone brought me here. Same as you. Someone I know. Look, he wanted me to do this with him.
Hostel Part 2 has a much harsher, darker look to it, but I'm not a fan of this change. It just seems like someone turned the saturation up a few notches and then went mental with the contrast. It's distracting more than elevating for the film.
64 bits. 32 bits.
16 bits, 8 bits, 4 bits, 2 bits, 1 bit.
Luckily, the tone is kept very similar to the first film, so it might just be a personal point that some people can get into and some people can't.
Rooms aren't just the cramped stone dungeons of the first film. Now they can be themed to the paying customer's liking, and with that, we're treated to some wonderful visuals.
I find the clients way better in this one. One is actually based on the Hungarian blood countess Elizabeth Bathory, who throughout her lifetime in the early 1600s was rumoured to have killed over 600 women and bathed in the blood of virgins in an attempt to keep her youth. That's just inspired and far more interesting than anything in the first film.
There's just a larger variety of things for your eyes to take in, rather than staring at dingy hostels and bars for the entire flick.
And while the killing scenes are once more spectacular, you'll be shocked at how little of the film they take up. When going through the film again, there's really not too many scenes where someone's getting tortured. It's mostly focused on story and atmosphere. People might be upset there's less of them this time round, but what's included is at least good. The sound design is what really sells the terror in these scenes. Just listen to this scythe on the woman's body. This whole scene with a woman in a giant bathtub is a highlight for me. It's just a shame the film really doesn't live up to its reputation as this insanely brutal horror that could be considered extreme pornography. For a seasoned horror vet, it's pretty damn tame. In my opinion, the first film was far worse than this.
I find there's just a much larger sense of fun in the sequel.
See this guy right here eating someone? Well, that's the director of Cannibal Holocaust, Ruggero Deodato.
It's not the rehash you might think. I honestly find it does what any good sequel's meant to do. It expands the world, gets more creative with its ideas, and fleshes out and fixes many of the flaws the first film has.
It's arguably superior to what came before, but unfortunately it lets you down with a massive lack of death scenes. It might sound morbid, but you watch a torture porn like this to squirm and cringe in fear at the horrible acts that take place, and this has very little of that. And then we have Hostel 3.
Who the fuck are these people?
With Hostel Part 3, I remember watching the trailer and just thinking it looked shit. Garbage. Bad.
Was I correct? Well, let's look at the setup first. This one is set in Las Vegas, which is a good switch up. It gives us a new flavour of location to experience, even if it is nowhere near as intimidating as the Slovakian cells. Because it's set in Vegas, this also gives us a new aspect to elite hunting we've not seen before, where rich people can place bets on the death scenes. They can bet on how someone will die, how long until they bargain for their life, and so on. It's a dementedly twisted idea.
It's a decent attempt at subverting our expectations of what we've come to learn from the first two. And that is where the positives end.
Within the first 5 minutes of the main characters being introduced, you instantly see the issues. They're fucking awful! Yes, they're on a bachelor party, but they're just so gross, sexist, and mean-spirited. They're even worse than the crew from the first movie. Even the guy they make the sweeter, more sensitive main character is an asshole. He's getting married, and when he has the chance to have sex, he reluctantly turns it down. Oh, such a sweet guy. Except the reason for this is because he got caught cheating before and he doesn't want to risk getting caught again.
What an asshole!
The acting is also by far the worst of the franchise. No one would be putting this on their acting reel.
Huh? You do this to your fucking friends?
When it comes to pussy, I have no friends.
What goes through the mind of a writer who does characters like this thinking that they'll be funny or charming? Or maybe endearingly cheeky? I don't know.
If you're someone who hates the male gaze in movies, then welcome to your personal nightmare, because the camera constantly leers at any woman that walks on screen.
Part 3 has that direct-to-DVD shine. The production quality just isn't as high. The visuals have no imagination, it's just very bog-standard filmmaking. For instance, in the very first scene, this guy's shirt rips, and then it just jumps from being ripped or not. And it's a plot point, how did they miss this? Even the torture scenes lack any sort of tension and are uninspired this time round. I was never gripped or threatened to turn away from the screen because it was also basic. Remember how amazing the special effects work was in 1 and 2? Well here, it's as cheap as you would imagine a direct-to-DVD movie would be. And this has a larger budget than the original.
There's a ton of really crummy CGI in this one, and it really takes you out of the movie because not once does it ever convince you that this stuff is actually happening.
More than half the time, it's shot so you don't even see anything happening. From the visuals, the music, the narrative, it all just feels so rushed and half-hearted.
There's just no passion to making a legit horror film. It doesn't come close to recreating what made the original so popular.
Who cares? All I want to do is go poke them in their vaginas with Justin's crutch. Go check their oil with my tongue. You know what I mean? Is it low down there?
You want to know the most insane thing about it though? This is the highest rated Hostel movie. It's got a fresh score on Rotten Tomatoes. Look, here you go. These are the critics that can't be trusted anymore. For me, their credibility is gone.
Don't you feel silly? Don't you feel stupid? Don't you feel a little ashamed?
The Hostel series is a good concept that deserves to be explored more. There's a raw, frightening aspect to the series that's undeniably horrific and scary, especially for people who travel a lot. I really hope they bring it back with someone who's able to do the setup justice.
With some likeable characters, some creative clients, and a gloomy atmosphere, it truly could be something special.
Mike, still looking for you. We're starting to freak out a little bit, man, so call us back. Maybe we should call his wife.